who's made wheaten bread or soda bread before? Quite a few people. It's quite a staple. So this is basically a take on a soda bread, but with the addition of treacle, which helps it caramelize in the oven and gives it a really kind of nice, nutty, mellow flavour. So we're using lots of our lovely local ingredients here, and I'm also including porridge oats. A bit of an unconventional one that I quite like the different texture. Sometimes soda bread can be quite the same all the way through, so it adds a little bit of chew, a bit like what you get in flapjack. So I'm sure a lot of you know the method already, but to start with, I'm going to combine my dry ingredients. So I'm using a mixture. I didn't actually realise until I went to England that wheaten bread is just wholemeal soda bread. So soda bread jumped across the water. Wheaten bread, people don't know what I'm talking about, but it's mainly wholemeal flour. Now, I don't use entirely wholemeal flour because that can be a little bit coarse, so that's why I'm chucking in a little bit of plain flour as well. You know what, I'm just going to chuck it in there because I'm sieving it anyway.
I do that too.
I know, well the thing is, I'm going to be whisking it anyway because I always do that to get rid of any lumps. It depends. This is a very good sieve. My one has loads of holes in it in Derby, so it kind of goes straight through. This one's taking a little bit more effort. So just my plain flour, my wholemeal flour, some porridge oats, only about 50 grams of those, and this is enough to make 2 loaves, by the way. So if you want to get a snap of that, all the ingredients for 1 loaf are there. To that, always very important to put salt in bread. Often a thing people try and skimp out on, but you will lose so much flavour if you try and skip out on that one. So a teaspoon of salt is going in there, and always use measuring spoons as well. So that goes in as well, and then a little bit of caster sugar. You don't need very much. You could skip it if you were being very careful, but just 2 teaspoons of that, and that's going to help us caramelise.
So the jumbo ones?
Yeah, these are the jumbo rolled oats. If you use the smaller ones, it's likely going to go to a little bit of a mush. I like the whole point of them being in there is the crunch, so I do the same thing with flapjacks. I just use them whole as well.
And are you doubling up?
I am doubling up, so I'm doing... Oh, yes, I am. Well spotted. I'm glad you're paying attention, Lynn. Of course, I'm making double the recipe, so I need to put in double the salt and bicarb. God, that was a bake-off moment there. That was going to come out really under-risen, so that is very lucky. Let me just check I haven't... Yeah, okay. Yeah, perfect. So I've got my sugar, okay, and then I'm just going to whisk that together just to combine those. I'm going to clear a couple of my bowls to one side. Just until that's distributed. Now, because the key ingredient here is our bicarb. So this is what gives us the lift. So in bread, it's yeast that gives you the lift. In soda bread, it's all about your chemical raising agent. So we've got to use the bicarb. So 2 teaspoons of that going in there. And the trick is at this point, if you don't whisk it through at this point, that's when you get those lumpy, where all the bicarb can end up on one side. So you end up with one side that's kind of airy and dried out, and the other side that's kind of dense as a pancake. So just whisk that to combine it, and then make a well in the middle. So just with your sieve, make a little well there. Now, for the wet ingredients, very, very simple. I've got some buttermilk over here, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of treacle. And I have to say, this M&S squeezy bottle is really handy for this, because I don't know if you've ever used the metal tins. Oh, it's miserable. It would almost put you off putting it in. So 2 tablespoons of treacle multiplied by 2 is 4 tablespoons of treacle. I'm keeping myself on my toes. I'm the one that doubled the recipe. So 4 tablespoons of that, and I'm just going to whisk that together before I put it in, again, so I just don't get super sweet points which are more likely to catch in the oven. Right, lovely. That's 2. And you can, some other recipes would use a mixture of treacle and honey. I really like the treacle because it's kind of that really dark, caramelly flavours. This does go quite dark in the oven. It's not burning, it's just got a really nice crust on it. And what I do when it comes out of the oven is I brush it with melted butter, and that stops it from drying out and gives you a really nice shiny finish. So just a little pastry brush and then brush it over. So there we go, relatively mess-free treacle edition. And then I'm just going to lightly whisk that together. So my mobile kitchen. So just give that a whisk, get right the way to the bottom. And then I'm going to pour that into my well. Now, I'm sure if you've made soda bread before, the conventional wisdom is the best, which is don't overwork it. You've got to be as gentle as possible. With a normal bread, it's all about kneading, so you want to build up the gluten. A wheaten bread or soda bread is meant to be quite cakey and crumbly. It's not meant to be chewy and bread-like. So I'm going to work with it as lightly as possible. So I'm going to clear my stuff from this side. So I've got my bowl. I'll mix this in, and then we'll be ready to knead. Okay, beautiful. So I'm going to pop my ingredients that I'm done with over here. Leave my lovely butter and chutney. Just to clear up. This is something that Bake Off taught me actually. Just try and clear up as you go along. Makes things so much easier. It also helps the tent that people clear up after you. Get a bit too used to that. So pop that over there. Great. And I'm going to bring over my flour just so I can dust the work surface. And this is where you kind of want to get involved in your hands. I like to use a spatula to start with so I don't end up with half of the loaf on my fingers. But just make a little well in the middle. And don't add all of it at this point. I'd say you want to add the majority of it, but just keep a little bit back, because sometimes, depending on the humidity or the type of flour, you don't necessarily need all the liquid. So I just keep a little bit back, and then just start to mix that from the middle, just bringing in the flour. Now, because we're using bicarbonate, that reacts with the acid in the buttermilk. So this starts effectively raising immediately. So this isn't really something you can hang about with. You want to mix it, shape it, get it into a loaf, and then get it in the oven because it starts working immediately. So I'm being quite light, bringing that all together. I am going to use, just judging that now, I'm going to use the last bit of my buttermilk and make sure I get all my treacle at the bottom. Don't want to skimp out any of that. In fact, I can use my spatula for that, so the spatula comes in handy. Perfect. And then just bring that together, working relatively lightly. Okay, and at this point, when it's starting to come together, that's when I'm going to ditch the spatula and go in with my hands instead. And it's also when I'm going to split the loaf into two. So spatula to one side. My knife here. I'm just going to flour my hands because this just makes the whole thing a little bit easier. So you just get stuck in, and then you'll see it's starting to come together. So roughly, get this in two. And each of these will be a loaf. So roughly split that dough down the middle. Just going to point my hand a second. And then dust a little bit of flour on your work surface. Now you don't need a lot. Get my tray ready. A little bit of flour here, just to stop it from sticking. A little bit of flour in the hands, and then I am just going to tip it out using my spatula. And you'll see it's started to come together really nicely, actually. So I have perfect. Tip that out, and it will look like a bit of a mess, but you don't want to knead this too much. It's okay if it looks a little bit bricky in places, and all you want to do is just press together. Try to not think of it as kneading, just kind of bringing it together into a ball. So feel free to give it a toss, get it into kind of a rough round oval shape onto my parchment lined tray. So I'm just going to slide that straight on from a height. It's always better from a height. And then the trick with soda bread is to help it cook evenly you want to get your knife, which I'm just going to brush off. And I'm going to use the back of the knife. If I use that side, it's just going to get stuck. So I'm going to use the flat edge of the knife, just with a little bit of flour. And I'm just going to press that in a cross shape. And I'm going to do it a couple more, because I want to make sure that later on we've got enough tasters for you lovely folks. And that's going to help it cook evenly, and will also mean that that's where it grows in the oven to give it the room. So, and that goes into a fan oven for about 40 to 45 minutes until you should be able to lift the bottom and it should sound hollow underneath.